Good Morning Texas, the not-so-perfect parent, sponsored by the Gladney Center for Adoption, where hope is born.
There comes a time when most conversations with our kids are met with one-word answers. You know what I'm talking about. How was school today? Fine. How was baseball practice? Fine. Folks, it doesn't get much deeper than that. But Mary E. DeMuth, author of Authentic Parenting in a Postmodern Culture, is here to talk about the importance of conversational parenting and how parents can keep a conversation going. Conversational parenting. I like that term. How would you define that?
Well, it's not talking to your kids, it's talking with your kids and being able to have the kinds of conversations with your kids that build a relationship over time.
So it's not just necessarily directing these questions to them, it's having more of a dialogue.
Absolutely, every single day.
Okay, so how would you foster that in your home? How could you make that possible?
Well, a lot of that is just being very extremely interested in what your kids have to say, and really listening, and also telling terrific stories about your own past and even your day, and engaging them where they're at every single day.
Yeah, so it's participating. It's not just, bombarding them with a bunch of questions when they get home at the end of the day.
No, because they'll just go catatonic on you.
They'll just totally shut down.
Absolutely.
But finding ways to keep the dialogue open and allowing yourself to be inserted in the conversation as well.
Right.
Okay, now we recently had an opportunity. You invited us over
I did.
for dinner not long ago. And we had an opportunity to kind of sit at your dinner table and watch how this goes. And we have some video where we can describe this. So describe kind of what's going on right here.
Well, every day our family was doing high and low around the dinner table, and we found that wasn't really enough for us. And so I decided to create these conversation starters. So every night you see my son pulling one out, and we ask a question, and they answer it. And so we just go around the table and answer the question, and it's really, really fun because we get to see what's going on in the hearts of our children. These are deeper issues that we are able to deal with around the table, not just what's your high, what's your low.
Okay, so mom, dad, everybody participates.
The whole family.
I want to hear what would be kind of an example of one of these questions that you might be reading around the table.
Well, they can be really light, and some of them, like the one that we had on this particular time was, what have you done today to help the environment? So some of them can be a little bit more superficial, and some of them can be like, describe what your perfect spouse would look like. And we really get to know, what's going on in our kids' heads, what are they thinking, and
you get to know your kids.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have an opportunity to understand what inspires them, how they tick. We do in our home, we do like a dinner quiz, which is great, where we ask, who was the first president of the United States, etc. And we get these answers, but I like your idea of doing more open-ended questions where there is more dialogue that's being fostered.
Exactly, and it's so exciting just to have your children open up to you and get to know them so much better.
All right, now you also talk about authenticity, and when you're referring to in your book, you're talking about parenting and being authentic. What do you mean by that? What does that look like? Well,
one of the best things I think we can do for our kids is to say, I'm sorry, and to be able to admit that we've been wrong, because a lot of times we as parents come across as I'm God, I have everything all together, and then we lack that approachability with our kids. If we're able to just say, I'm so sorry, we invite our kids to say, hey, I messed up too, and we then can start this dialogue back and forth.
And not just messing up as far as what you might have done with your kids.
Yelling or whatever.
But also kind of like, hey, I screwed up at work today, let me tell you what happened, and this is kind of how I handled the situation. And they get to see that you're human also, and it makes you more relatable.
Exactly. We had that conversation a few nights ago where I was just I'd had one of those days as a rejected writer, getting a rejection, and I was so crabby and sad about it, and I shared it with my kids, and they one by one around the table just took turns encouraging me, saying, Mommy, you're a great writer. I love you, Mommy. I'm so glad you're here. And so we mutually benefited each other, because then they were able to open up and share their hearts.
Right.
And they also encouraged me.
Because mom and dad need nurturing too.
We do.
Why don't we do
really
this? Why don't we just make this a daily practice? What's keeping us from having these conversations with our kids?
Well, I think part of that is just time. We all have 24 hours in a day, but for some reason now we're cramming it with computers and work and commute, and really the best thing we can do for our families is to really make some radical changes to slow down so we can spend some time with our kids.
Right, I think that's so important. This is all excellent advice. What a great way to keep the conversation going in the family. Thank you so much for being here. And to get a free conversation starters, these are wonderful, folks. Go to Mary's website at marydemuth.com. And for parenting questions or for segment ideas, you can check out WFAA.com/parents.